Welcome to Gen 1 Rev 22 Ministries on Wednesday the 8th of April 2020, and today we are going to be looking at Noah's Ark. So what is it about Noah's Ark we're going to be looking at today? We're going to be looking at the size of Noah's Ark, and I'm going to be giving you all the dimensions of what it was capable of holding. We're also going to be reading from Genesis chapter 6 to Genesis chapter 9. I'm sure we've all heard of the story of Noah's Ark, and we remember as children, or maybe some of us don't, maybe we've never heard of Noah's Ark. This is the time to learn about Noah's Ark, even if you think you know about Noah's Ark, or even if you've never heard of Noah's Ark. Noah was chosen by God to build an ark, whereupon on that ark would be saved from the earth Noah and his family and his sons and their wives, and also different kinds of animals would be placed upon the ark and would go to Noah to be saved upon the ark. And the reason God chose Noah to build an ark and to go upon the ark was because God was going to send a flood upon the earth. It was going to be a global, worldwide flood due to the wickedness of man and the corrupt nature of man, and what man had done to God's perfect, good, very good creation. So we will start with Genesis chapter 6. Genesis chapter 6 verses 9. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God, and Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold it, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you are to make it. The length of the ark 300 cubits, its breadth 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark, and finish it to a cubit above, and set the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second and third decks. For behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, and you and your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female, of the birds according to their kinds, and of the animals according to their kinds, of every creeping thing of the ground according to its kind. 2 of every sort shall come into you, to keep them alive. Also take with you every sort of food that is eaten, and store it up. It shall serve as food for you and for them. Noah did this. He did all that God commanded him. Genesis chapter 7. Then the Lord said to Noah, Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, the male and his mate, and a pair of the animals that are not clean, the male and his mate. And 7 pairs of the birds of the heavens, also male and female, to keep their offspring alive on the face of all the earth. For in 7 days I will send rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights, and every living thing that I have made I will blot out from the face of the ground. And Noah did all that the Lord had commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters came upon the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood, of clean animals and of animals that are not clean, and of birds and of everything that creeps on the ground. 2 and 2, male and female, went into the ark with Noah, as God had commanded Noah. And after 7 days the waters of the flood came upon the earth. And in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. And rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On the very same day Noah and his sons Shem and Ham and Japheth and Noah's wife and the 3 wives of his sons with them entered the ark. They and every beast according to its kind, and all the livestock according to their kind, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth according to its kind, of every bird according to its kind, every winged creature. They went into the ark with Noah, 2 and 2 of all flesh, with which there was the breath of life. And those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him. And the Lord shut him in. The flood continued 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the water. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole of heaven were covered. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep, and all flesh died that move on the earth, birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind. Everything on dry land, in whose nostrils was the breath of life, died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left and those who were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. Genesis chapter 8. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the livestock that were with him in the ark. And God made a wind blow all over the earth, and the waters subsided, the fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were closed, the rain from the heavens was restrained, and the waters receded from the earth continually. At the end of 150 days the waters had abated, and in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. And the waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. At the end of the 40 days Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made, and sent forth a raven. It went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent forth a dove from him to see that the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove found no place to set her foot, and she returned to him in the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her and brought her into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. Then he waited another 7 days and sent forth the dove, and she did not return to him any more. In the 601st year, in the 1st month, the 1st day of the month, the waters were dried from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. In the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried out. Then God said to Noah, Go out from the ark, you and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of flesh, birds, animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the ground, that they may swarm on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast of every creeping thing and every bird, every thing that moves on the earth went out by families from the ark. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done, while the earth remains. Seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. Genesis chapter 9. And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground, and of all the flesh of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And as I gave you the green plants, I give you everything. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. And for your lifeblood I will require a reckoning from every beast. I will require it, and from man, from his fellow man, I will require a reckoning for the life of man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made him in his own image. And you, be fruitful and multiply, sim in the earth and multiply in it. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, Behold, I establish my covenant with you, and your offspring after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. It is for every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. We read there the biblical historical narrative concerning Noah, his building of the ark, his boarding of the ark, on the ark, the receding of the waters, the ark landing, the exit of all those and all the creatures on the ark back onto the earth. And we read of the promise God had made never to send another global flood upon the earth, and the rainbow being the sign of the covenant between man and God. And each time the rainbow appears in the clouds, it's to remind us of that covenant between God and man, and to remind us of the judgment upon man for man's sin. And so therefore we have to look at the real Noah's Ark, which we've just discussed, because when we hear of the not real Noah's Ark, whereby we as children have seen pictures whereby there's elephants hanging over the ark, there's giraffes hanging over the top of the ark, there's all kinds of creatures, and the ark is tiny in comparison to the animals on the ark, which is not a true depiction, and which leaves an incorrect image and an incorrect appreciation for the real Noah's Ark. So we're looking at how big was the ark. Well, I think from the pictures I've gone through whilst reading through Genesis chapter 6 to 9, we can see, if we've not already seen, how big the ark was according to the measurements given to Noah. So we can see it wasn't a small ark, it was a huge ark. Now, this happened approximately 4,500 years ago, and we need to look at the historical record which gives us the real size of Noah's Ark, and one which clearly demonstrates that indeed Noah's Ark would have indeed been fit for the purpose it was intended to fulfill. So we read of the great, we've already read, like I say, of this catastrophic global flood, but that's not our aim to literally talk about the flood today. It's to discuss the size of Noah's Ark. I will do that in another video, and we shall also cover on another video where the flood waters came from. I mean, we've read about a little bit of it in there, but there's a lot more to where the flood waters came from. Now, Noah was to build this huge seagoing vessel that would enable him, his family, specific animals and anyone else who would listen to him and get on board the huge seagoing vessel to survive this global flood and repopulate the earth after the flood waters had receded from the earth. So took Noah approximately 100 years to build the ark. During that time, the people alive at that time would have seen him building the ark and thought, what the heck is this guy doing? And he would have told them, well, God's sending a flood, you know. He's going to judge the earth. He's going to judge the world. He's going to destroy the earth with flood. And I'm building this ark because I've been told to, for anyone who'd come onto it, and also for all to take on lives, and all the animals are going to come to us when this ark is ready, when God is going to send these flood waters, and all these animals which God sends to us are going to go on the ark, along with myself and my family and whoever else wants to come on, and you can be saved by going through the door of the ark. So there would have been about 100 years of people watching, and people wondering what Noah was doing, thinking he was a crazy guy. A little bit like when you hear a preacher in the street saying Jesus Christ is the door, Jesus Christ is the way, Jesus Christ is the only way, he's the way, the truth and the life, and everyone looks at the preacher and thinks, wow, this guy's lost the plotto, you know. In the same way, they would have looked at Noah and thought, this guy's lost the plot. So, within the historical account, we can read the measurements and instructions that Noah was ordered to follow. So, Genesis 6 verses 13 to 16. So God said to Noah, I have decided to destroy all living creatures, for they have filled the earth with violence. Yes, I will wipe them all out along the earth. So Noah is given the description and the measurements here. Build a large boat from cypress wood and waterproof it with tar inside and out. Then construct decks and stalls throughout its interior. Make the boat 300 cubits. Now, a cubit is an old system of measurement. You'd probably be able to go and Google it to find out what the measurement was. It's an Egyptian measurement, and it's 300. It's probably about 1.5 feet long, each cubit in our present day measurements. There are some slight variations, but on average about 1.5 feet long. So the ark was 300 cubits in length. That would be about 450 feet long. It was 50 cubits wide, so it would be 75 feet wide, and 30 cubits high, which is 45 feet. So you've got a construction there, 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Okay, so yeah, 18 inches. You have to leave an 18-inch opening at the top, probably for air to circulate. Below the roof all the way around the boat, put the door on the side and build 3 decks inside the boat, lower, middle and upper. So it would have 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet high. It would have had 3 decks, lower, middle and upper. It would have a gap near the top all the way around of 18 inches long, an opening. We also, these measurements will give this huge seagoing vessel 95,700 square feet of space. That is equivalent to 20 standard basketball courts. So once we've put the decking in as well, there we have 95,700 square feet. Equivalent to 20 standard basketball courts. It would overhang a soccer pitch in length by approximately 50 feet at both ends. So that's going into the terracing if you think about a modern day football stadium at 50 feet at each end. It would just be over 1/3 the width of the soccer pitch. Would be just over 3 stories in height. So I think most of us have been to a football ground or whatever, so we can imagine the length of this, taking up the whole length of the field, the soccer pitch, and going into the end terracing, home and away, by 50 foot at each end. It would take up 1/3, just either side, halfway across the pitch, and it will be 3 stories high. So that would be quite an impressive sized seagoing vessel. Now its capacity would hold up to 125,000 sheep. Also, it will be able to contain 520 rail cars. Clearly the real Noah's Ark would easily be suited for the task which it was commissioned to fulfill, and did complete some 4,500 years ago. So we have there a diagram giving the approximate measurements, all the different viewings from different angles, from the top, the bottom, on the sides, and from one end we can see there on the bottom left hand side, and we can see it wasn't designed to go anywhere, because if the whole world was covered in water, you know, it was just designed to float. So, you know, we wouldn't need an engine, it wouldn't need sails, it wouldn't need a rudder, it wouldn't need anything. All it would need to be able to do is float and be able to sustain the waters that would be coming upon the earth. And that kind of structure, apparently, according to, I think it's Korean shipbuilders, have said this kind of structure, this width, the measurements would be ideal for it to survive such what there would have been big seas. Plus also, if you look at big tankers travel the world, they're very similar shape. You know, they're just designed to be, you know, able to survive huge seas, don't have to be manoeuvrable. I know where I'd rather be if there was a global flood. I'd rather be sat on something like that. Safest place to be, sitting on top of the sea, as opposed to being drowned in the sea. As we've read from the historical narrative in the book of Genesis, we read that God had selected specific animals to go on the ark. Now, all those animals that were on the ark would have repopulated the planet. And many people have said, you know, were dinosaurs on the ark, it would be impossible for dinosaurs, it would be impossible for any of these big creatures to have been on the ark, because obviously they're big, you know, they'd need a lot, you know, a huge ark. But as we've discussed, the ark was big to be able to take big animals on the ark. You know, you could get 125,000 sheep on it, 520 road cars. But obviously there would have been some creatures that, you know, if it was at 3 floors, they may have had their head sticking out somewhere, or very uncomfortable for them. So Noah wouldn't have taken the adults on board, he would have taken the juveniles on board, the younger animals. Therefore they would be of age, they're young, they would have when they get off the ark, they'll be ready to reproduce. They won't be too big on the ark, as they'll be juveniles, they'll be the children, if you like, of all the animals. So most of the animals probably would have been very young kinds of animals. Plus the dinosaurs, you know, people have said, oh well, if you say dinosaurs were on the ark, well, dinosaurs were on the ark because they were created during the creation week, along with all the animals and all the other land animal dwellers, creatures. And there's plenty of evidence demonstrating that dinosaurs have lived alongside man, so therefore dinosaurs are on the ark, and they would have been the smaller juvenile dinosaurs. Plus most dinosaurs were no bigger than sheep. You know, it's just these ones that we see in Jurassic Park and so on, which we get the impression old dinosaurs were huge, but most of them weren't that big. Obviously the ark was a very real seagoing vessel, in it, a very real historical account. But what has the ark got to do with Jesus Christ? Well, the ark is a type of Jesus Christ. Noah and his family went on the ark, and all the animals, to be saved from the judgment of God, the punishment that God was going to bring upon the entire earth and those living on the earth at that time. So the ark was made of wood. Jesus Christ was nailed to a piece of wood. And all those who look to Jesus Christ on that piece of wood and accept his work, his saving work, and turn to him and confess their sin and their disobedience to God's laws and realise it's not through any works that they've done or they can do in order to get saved. They need to accept the work of Jesus Christ and put their trust in him and confess with their mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord and God raised him from the dead. We also see on the ark a door. We read in Genesis chapter 6:16, God says to Noah, make a roof for the ark, finish it into a cubit above, and set the door of the ark in its side. Set the door of the ark in its side. So God has specifically to put the door where it's accessible. You know, you don't want it on the top, you don't want it underneath, you don't want it too high. It's got to be in exactly the right place so people can see it and walk through it. And notice the size of the door compared to the rest of the ark. But we've got a door on the ark. Genesis 7:16. Once the rain waters came and the floods were coming upon the earth and all the animals and the people were in there that were supposed to be in there, Genesis 7:16 says, and those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. Once that door was closed, that's it, end of. Nothing else can get onto that ark. 100 years of Noah's preaching, boom, gone. You didn't listen, you're not in the ark, you're off. You can't get in, it's too late. They saw the judgment coming, they saw God's wrath coming, exactly what Noah was speaking about. They saw it coming and they would have realised, wow, we should have listened to Noah. And the same is now. Jesus Christ describes himself. He actually said that he is the door. Jesus Christ said in John chapter 10 verses 9, I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. We also read in John 14:6, Jesus Christ said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So Jesus Christ is the door. Jesus Christ is the way. Jesus Christ is the truth. And Jesus Christ is the life. And no one comes to the Father except through me. They've got to go through the door. Like they have to go through the door on the ark. They've got to go through the door, which is Jesus Christ. You have to go through the door. There's no other way. Every other person or whoever who has claimed, every other religion is wrong. None of them make this claim that they are the way, the life, the truth and the door to go through. None of them. They just create a set of rules and so on. None of them make any claims of what Jesus Christ made and what Jesus Christ demonstrated. I hope I've managed to get rid of all those false images and perceptions that have been passed on, or that you may have, concerning what the ark was. And now I hope you understand what the ark was and is, and who it's pointing to, which is Jesus Christ. And I hope you find Jesus Christ. Gen 1 Rev 22 Ministries, thank you, goodbye.